government will create an advisory body to navigate the risks of artificial intelligence. It's released an interim report on safe and responsible AI. There are plenty of concerns around AI, not just about taking jobs, but deep fakes affecting elections, and also the sorts of technology used to hire and fire people. What will algorithms base that on? Voluntary guidelines, such as watermarking AI-generated content, will be developed with industry, but the government is weighing up compulsory measures too. I spoke to the Industry and Science Minister, Husic, a short time ago and asked him how he would decide what are mandatory and voluntary areas.
So on the voluntary side, we want to work with industry on things like what's called watermarking, and that's important because, as people know, ChatGPT and a lot of generative AI can create images just out of literally looking at other photos and that, and it generates an image that you think is legitimate, but it's actually been created.
It's an AI image that looks like a photo, basically.
Correct. And so being able to tell the difference will depend on labelling. And so we want to work with industry on how quickly we can make that happen now.
So those have to be labelled, no matter who's doing that. You say voluntary. So
again, that will be stuff that we work through with industry, because there may be some things that people are quite happy that, you know, it's not really serious and it's just, you know, mucking around in terms of what's being created. But I think you should know whether or not, in the case of a news item, for instance, whether the image you're looking at has been created through generative AI or is it organic and legitimate.
Or indeed a video on Facebook of a political candidate.
Correct.
Is that getting into mandatory territory?
I think that what the international community is looking at is that in some cases dealing with disinformation may require a mandatory pathway, but we've just got to get started on the work. We're keen to get this moving, and that's what we're trying to do.
And how do you delineate between disinformation and someone saying, oh, you know, I did that as a bit of a gag? I mean, Pauline Hanson's cartoons are obviously fake because they're cartoons.
Yeah, you can tell straight away. Yeah.
Maybe she switches to AI, and if it's something where most people would go, well, we know the PM would never say that. Does she need to label it? Is that satire? Is that commentary? Where does that sort of fit in?
Well, I'm going to be very careful about speculating at this point, because that's why we're sort of wanting to work with industry to define exactly those type of cases that drive or underpin your question. But anything that, you know, is shaped up to look as real, as humanly real as possible, that has a serious, in an image sense, that has an impact. For example, you know, if you carry something on the news that has been created by AI and triggers a response out of government, that's pretty serious. And it's not just images, it could also be audio as well, because again, the technology is developing so much that it's able to take from different parts of the internet things that have been said and be able to create almost lifelike recordings of what people have said when they're not true.
People watching might go, okay, so politicians might be protected, that's great for you. What about an everyday person? They might be in a spat with a neighbour who posts something on Facebook. Does it? Well, I know that's sort of at a micro level, but that might be something that affects everyday people.
Again, those are the type of cases where there might be a legal implication that we need to consider. Okay, what are the things that we do?
On jobs, look, we've already got speculation about what jobs could be replaced. It can be financial analyst and accountant, a journalist as well. What's your principle on that? Should there be protections in place, or is that hindering technology? Will jobs just go because the technology and others are created and that's what happens?
Well, I think business and government needs to think deeply about how technology gets used in the community and what some of the impacts are. In this case, what are the job impacts? And being able to work through those is really, really important. Technology has improved the way that businesses have run over decades, and that's come with job impacts. Being able to work out if someone's job is affected and how they'll be treated, really important stuff. We recognise too that longer term jobs are going to get more complex, and that means we've got to invest in education, which is what we're doing as a government, either through universities or through TAFEs. And just bear in mind, with all this technology that's occurring and being used right now, we've had as a government some of the best job growth that any incoming government's had in recent memory. So
it doesn't mean that you don't get to a cliff where that happens. I guess in a principle, again, sense, do you look at restrictions and say companies can only automate a certain percentage of jobs in different industries, or is that?
I think you have to be careful about, to be completely frank, answer your question directly, you have to be careful about setting those type of restrictions. But it does, I have for years, and you and I have spoken for quite some time about the way in which technology impacts society and in this case jobs. The thing I've always been concerned about is the businesses that have been slow to use technology suddenly want to play catch up, bring technology in, and it has a big job impact. The more that businesses plan and think about the impact of the way they use technology on their existing workers and workforce, that will help them longer term.
Okay.
And I think also businesses don't want to lose necessarily their talented employees. They build up a lot of experience, they add value to their firms, they make them strong, and we want to encourage that wherever we can.
Just on the National Reconstruction Fund, the opposition having a crack at it, they point out that the Prime Minister's saying it's open for business, but, well, we're not a sort of year and a half since the election, no money's actually been invested. Is that a fair point from them? It seems slow to...
Well, the coalition's been... I mean, the coalition are quick to criticise and slow with ideas of their own, and importantly, slow to learn from their own experience. They've not wanted to support the National Reconstruction Fund. They have a very convenient care when it comes to manufacturing. I mean, these people drove out car manufacturers and only recognised the value of manufacturing late in their nearly 10-year term in office. We want the National Reconstruction Fund to be able to rebuild manufacturing. That's going to be hard work, but we're committed to it. And we're doing a whole range of things within government, not just the National Reconstruction Fund. Look, Susan Ley and the coalition, they can criticise as much as they want, but we're not about propping up businesses that might be on their last legs or businesses that are making definite decisions to change the way they run to strengthen their operations long term. And so I think the coalition is all over the shop when it comes to manufacturing. Political attack point, not a serious policy area.
When will it invest its first dollar, though?
We're looking, we've now got the legislation through Parliament, put together the board. We're close to announcing a CEO, and we're hoping that those investment decisions get made as quickly as possible. We're not doing what the coalition did. Let me just make this point. We're not using taxpayer dollars for political interests. We want to make good long-term investment decisions, the right ones, not the rush ones. We're very keen for those to happen as soon as possible.
Election, presumably?
We will be looking as soon as possible to get those investments done, but we set up an independent board deliberately. We don't want taxpayers thinking that their money is being used as a political slush fund like the coalition did.